I wanted to have the book. I wanted to see the book on bookshelves, like bookstores, and I wanted to see it on Amazon, and I wanted to do that. Like, that was just such a dream of mine. Oh my gosh, this is an emotional podcast. And then when I actually launched the book and I had the launch of the book, it was probably one of the most beautiful evenings of my life, because regardless of what I was going through, I had 100 people in the room. My daughter was going through such a challenging time. And then in the midst of it all, she goes up to my mentor, who was introducing me in the book in front of 100 people. And she goes up to my mentor and says, Amelia, I would like the microphone, please, because I'd like to say something. And Amelia looked at me and went, okay. And she said, and she looked at Abby and she said, are you sure? And Abby said, I do. I want to say something in front of everyone. And I said to Abby, are you really sure you want to do this? And she said, I'm perfectly sure. And I thought, oh no, okay. And Amelia introduced me and then said, oh, Abby's Sonia's daughter, she'd like to say something, and gave the microphone to her. And Abby gets up and goes, okay, my name's Abby, and I just want to say, I am, like, literally got up there and said the most off-the-cuff, beautiful speech and said, I am so proud of my mum. Like, I am so proud. And I know how tough it's been for my mum, and, you know, and I know how hard she works, and I know how much she really wanted this book to make a difference to the world and to help people be great leaders. And I'm so proud of her. Like, my mum is a rock star and I love her. And literally everyone in the room was crying. And I'm just like standing looking at it, and I could see everyone in front of her, like tears coming down their face. And then I got up and was like, I don't even know how to respond to that. And then afterwards, it was such a beautiful evening. And then afterwards, literally, I was just in like, wow, I felt like this out-of-body experience. And then Abby, my daughter, comes up to me and goes, Mum, everyone's at your book table. They're all wanting to buy your book. And I went, what? And so I raced up to the table. And then afterwards, I said to Abby, I need you to do that at more book launches for me, babe. But,
it's a great sales tactic by the sounds.
Yeah, but it was just awesome.
Hello and welcome to the Be The Push podcast. My name is Jack Ferguson, and I'm going to be sharing with you stories of how business owners and entrepreneurs had to push through the hard times in their careers. We're going to be discussing the lessons learned from these experiences while arming you with actionable advice so you can be the push when you need it most. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. Let's get started. Hello, thanks for tuning into this episode of the podcast. This is episode number 31 and potentially one of the rawest discussions yet. On this episode, I interview a talented entrepreneur, Sonia McDonald, about leadership and, of course, her stories of hardship. We talk about how she ended up in a foreign country on her own as a single mum, a few dollars to her name, and what impact that had on her personal life and on her career. Another story we talk through is how Sonia was impacted by challenges that her daughter was going through and how that impacted the business she was running. We'd all probably like to be able to have total separation in our personal lives from our professional lives, but that's often easier said than done. As you heard from the intro story, this is a very intense discussion that summed up pretty much how the most of this episode goes, so get set for a little bit of a roller coaster. Here we go. All right, so today we're here with Sonia McDonald. Sonia, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So you're the CEO and founder of Leadership HQ, and you're the author of 2 books, I believe, Just Rocket and Leadership Attitude. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Look, I wake up most days and I think that's what I do, but some days I go, okay, this is interesting.
Right.
No, it's great fun.
And you describe yourself as an accidental entrepreneur. Why do you say that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know, the journey of the accidental entrepreneur. I suppose the reason why I call myself that is if I look back at my life and where I am now, I never ever envisaged that I'd be where I am today. And it happened by accident, and it was obviously meant to be, and I'm exactly where I need to be today. However, if I look at where my life and career was going, I really thought it was going on a different path. I thought here I was working as a human resources leader for Asia. I was, a mum. I was living in Shanghai. I had a great career over in Shanghai, and then my whole world fell apart while I was over in Shanghai, really unexpectedly, and I'd become a full-time solo mum of a 3.5-year-old little girl, and I was left with $2,000 in the bank.
Right.
Yeah, and then it was a really, really, really devastating time, and it's amazing what you discover and learn about yourself when things like that happen, when things totally unexpected happen, whether it's your life changes or tragedy or you just get thrown a curveball and you go, okay, what am I going to do with this curveball now? What am I going to do with this ball now? And I made a choice that I knew I couldn't stay in Shanghai as a full-time solo mum, so I decided to pack my bags and move us back here, and I moved back in with my parents.
Right. Yeah.
And to a really crappy Holden Commodore.
Uh-huh. Got the job done though, right?
Yeah. And that $2,000, thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to start all over again. And I started putting myself out there, and it was really interesting. I started looking for senior human resources roles, and I couldn't find one in particular. I mean, this was like 14 years ago. I couldn't really find something that offered me the flexibility that I needed, like trying to balance being a solo mom plus, trying to hold the career. And I remember going for this interview with Brisbane Marketing and for a human resources director role, and I was shortlisted as one of the candidates for this job. And the recruitment consultant rings me and she goes, oh, look, the CEO's decided to go with the other candidate. And I was like, oh, okay. Why is that? Can I have some feedback? And she said, oh, he said to tell you that he thinks you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, really?
And I went, what does that mean? I had to Google it. I said, what does that mean? Anyway, I started, again, putting myself out there, trying to find great opportunities. And I ended up finding someone that worked in leadership development. And he was looking for someone to train engineers and superintendents on construction sites. Leadership. So he said, look, he interviewed me and he said, I'm looking for someone to go to construction sites and teach and coach and educate engineers and superintendents on how to be leaders, like how to lead people. And I faked it. Like I looked at him, I said, he goes, do you know much about leadership? And I looked at him, I said, I know so much about leadership. And he just went, oh, and I thought, please don't ask me any questions. And thank goodness he didn't.
Right.
I got the job and I fell in love with it. And I think that's when the kind of like that fire inside of me started, because I started working for someone else and fell in love with what I was doing, and I could see the difference I was making in the leadership space. And then that's when I decided to write the blog, and that's when the blog turned into the company. So that's kind of where the entrepreneurial kind of path took me, but I kind of call it accidental because it wasn't something that I thought, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to plan to do this. I fell into it by accident.
Right. Okay. So you worked for someone for a while, and then how did you then? So I'm assuming the blog started up then while you're working for someone else?
Yeah. Because I just sort of thought I used to love writing when I was a little girl. So I just thought it'll really help me learn by writing about leadership. So, because I was reading so many books and researching and training, because I was training a lot of people around me around leadership, I wanted to make sure that I was across, the latest and greatest when it came to leadership. So I thought by writing about it, it'll help with me in terms of growing and learning. So that's when I started the blog.
Right. Okay. And what made you decide to then turn the blog into a company? What was that moment like?
That moment was interesting because everyone around me had told me to start the company, and I used to look at them and go, no, are you crazy? Like, why would I want to start a company? I mean, that's scary. And I suppose, and I mentioned it in my book, Leadership Attitude, there was a chapter called Jumping Off the Cliff. I literally felt I was on this cliff, like standing on this cliff, looking out onto the horizon, like kind of looking at where I wanted to go. And I, even though I loved working for someone else, I thought, man, I really want to create my own destiny. Like, wonder if I could create my own destiny. And I became this like flip chart queen and had flip chart all over the wall for about a year, and started coming up with ideas and thinking about what I could do. And then I just started thinking to myself, what's the worst thing that could happen? Why don't I turn Leadership HQ, which is a blog, into a company and see how it goes? So, yeah, I don't know. That moment, I don't know when the moment was. I think it was everyone around me that kind of encouraged me to do it and planted the seed. And then I thought to myself, well, you know what? If I stuff up or if it fails, what's the worst thing that could happen? At least I gave it a go. Yeah.
So when you say everyone around you encouraging you to do it, is this your readers or is this your friends or your colleagues? Who's telling you to start the company?
I suppose, my friends, my network, a lot of the peers around me, a lot of the people I was coaching were really instrumental in saying, you should go out and do this yourself. A number of the readers I had, and I suppose that's where it was really cool, because when I was actually out there meeting people, they'd say, you know, I read your blog, and I'd go, oh, do you? They'd go, you should start a company. And I was like, wow, I've got followers. Wow. So that was really nice, like people encouraging me. And I think that's why I'm so passionate now about helping everyone around me step up and shine. I want to try and be everyone's cheerleaders. So that's why, you know, I want everyone else out there to rock it, because I kind of go, well, if I could get out there and do this, then everyone can get out there and do it if they really want to.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
yeah.
Cool. I can definitely relate to your point about writing your blog, and then one day you hear someone who's reading it, you know, because the same thing happens with the podcast a little bit. Is I'll record a lot of episodes, you can sort of see the downloads, but then to actually have someone in person say to you, yeah, I'm listening to it, is sometimes you can feel like you're shouting into the ether a bit. Do you feel that? Did you used to feel that with your blog?
Sometimes I did. Sometimes you kind of write the blogs and you go, why am I writing this blog? Because I don't even know if anyone's actually reading it. It's the same with the podcast. You know, how you were saying you're listening to my podcast.
Yeah.
On the way here, I was like, oh, do people listen to my podcast? I totally get where you're coming from. But, you know, but I think you'd be surprised. I bet you heaps of people listen to your podcast. So...
Yeah, well, just the funny thing is, though, it's to keep that sort of momentum up, I find, and I'm not sure if you found it too, it's without that feedback, sometimes you're just plodding along, really. Yeah,
that's why I think I'm always like, bring it on, like give me the feedback, or, you know, share with me what you're learning and things. And it really does keep you going. Like last week I got unexpectedly this incredible email from this single mum that actually took my book out of the library, the local library here in Brisbane, and she reached out to me and wrote this beautiful email to me and saying, I don't normally pick up leadership books, however, you know, I just sort of saw your book and I couldn't put it down, and I just want to say you changed my life. In the end, she went, thank you forever and ever. I read this email and I was literally sitting in the car. I had tears going down my face, and I sent her an email back going, wow, can I have your phone number? Do you mind if I ring you? And she wrote back going, are you joking? Yeah, okay. And then I rang her and she went, have you just rung me? And I said, yes, I just want to say thank you. You don't know how much that means to me. And she went, wow, I'm just so thank you, like, for ringing me and giving me that feedback. I said, well, and we should be doing that a lot more, just telling people. I mean, I think that's what leadership's about, making a difference, telling people, saying, hey, look, I just want to reach out to you and say your blog or your podcast or your book made a difference to me, and not to be afraid to do that, because, you know, people really want to hear that stuff. Yeah.
And people can be getting a lot of value out of what you do, and they just never say anything as well. So
true.
That's, it's such an interesting phenomenon, I think, anyway. But I'll just go back to your point before about, so you said you've I just want to drill down on that part, how you got offered this job, and you didn't, at the time you said you didn't know anything about leadership. Did you know some things about leadership but you just didn't recognize them, or do you feel that it was just something you didn't know about?
I think I knew a little bit about it. I mean, cool. I suppose because I've got a degree in human resources and psychology, I think, look, I definitely felt that I knew a little bit about it. I mean, if he'd sat there and offered me a job in being a neurosurgeon, I wouldn't have said yes. In fact, you know what I mean? Like I kind of knew a little bit, but I didn't know, and I didn't feel like when I was sitting there, oh, I'm this expert in leadership. And I did feel like I was faking it by sitting there looking at him going, please don't ask me like really specific questions around. Right. I think I knew what leadership was fundamentally, but in terms of really coaching and educating and training in it, I didn't know as much as probably what I said I did. However, this is why I'm a great believer in confidence means more than competence. Having that confidence in yourself. So having that confidence in myself, and then just literally like becoming focused and so passionate about it. And even like when I was back then learning all about it and teaching myself, and I kind of was even thinking about my school days and my uni days. I thought, wow, I wish I'd really started to learn this much, much earlier on. It would have made a big difference to who I am today, I think. Understanding leadership at an early age. And that's why I'm passionate about teaching teenagers and emerging leaders, or, you know, future leaders, about leadership, and saying, get out there and learn about who you are and what leadership is, and, you know, who you are as a leader really early on.
Right. Well, that's a good place to start then, I think. What is it? What is leadership? Because this is something that I think does elude a lot of people. I mean, I'm one of those people who I think when I looked at from the outside, you think, oh, leadership easy. That's what I thought about it. It's when you actually try and do it, you're like, oh, okay, there's a bit more to this than what I thought. I find it really hard. But let's start with what it is. What is leadership to you?
I suppose everyone sees it really differently, and this is why, for me, how I see leadership, I find really works for me and everyone around that I talk to and I coach and we work with. I believe leadership's fundamentally about making a difference. It's about others. Leadership is, I think we've made leadership bigger than what it is. I think we've kind of gone, well, I'm not a leader because I don't have CEO on my title, or I don't have manager in my title. Well, leadership it's not about role or title. It's actually an attitude. It's actually a behavior. It's a mindset. So I'm all about, I believe that self-awareness is the key. So leadership to me is about understanding who I am. So, okay, understanding, you know, what am I passionate about? What are my strengths? What are my values? You know, am I acting with integrity, honesty? You know, am I being authentic? And that's something I reflect on every day. So for me, it's around how can I be the best version of myself every day to help others be the best they can be? Like, how can I make a difference to even one person per day? Even if it's just an act of kindness or compassion or gratitude, or helping inspire someone or just help someone. To me, that's leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Righto. And do you think that leaders are someone or are people that are born, or can anyone become a leader?
Oh, wow, man. You're asking the challenging questions.
I've had a few, I've listened to a lot of sports people who they kind of, they tend to say leaders are born. I don't like to think of anything being that fixed myself. I think a lot of things can be learned that we don't give ourselves credit for being able to learn, but it'd be interesting to get your take on how much can be developed versus how much you need to have as an innate, an innate ability, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I suppose in terms of the work that we've been doing and the research and all, and also in all the writings that we produce, I have definitely seen that leaders can be made. I mean, that's just how we've experienced it. In saying that, yeah, I think you meet people and you go, however you see leadership, they might be born with these innate qualities that you might kind of identify as leadership qualities. I get that. However, I've seen some incredible transformations of people that never ever saw themselves as leaders, didn't understand the leadership space, and have just transformed into leaders through just opening up their mind to it and learning about it. And I think it is about that commitment of just wanting to go, you know what, I do want to be a leader. I do want to make a difference. And how do I go about that? And I suppose that's why our coaching and our programs, we love doing them so much, because we're seeing that transformation and change. Essentially, we're changing people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're changing organisations and teams, and seeing the difference and the change that I see in the leaders that we work with. Honestly, it makes my heart sing. And we teach them leadership. At the start of when we work with them, a lot of them just look at me and go, "Oh, I'm not a leader." And then even if it's after 6 or 9 or 12 months that I'm working with them, and also hearing stories of when they've, come off some of our events or programs or coaching, when they come back to me, it could be months or years later, and they go, "Sonia, it was that learning and that self-awareness and that work that we did together that fundamentally changed how I am in the world, or how I see myself on the world." So that is learnt. I mean, that is,
right,
yeah.
Okay. And so what is, if someone comes to you, I want to become a better leader. I want to, I think it's time for me to step up. Where do you sort of start?
That's such a really good question. And it's something that funnily enough, I get asked about a lot.
Yeah.
Depending on where the person's at. I mean, we get asked around that question all over the globe from people, and it could start with anything. You could start with watching some videos or TED Talks. There's some great TED Talks around leadership. It could be books. I mean, gosh, there's so many books on leadership. But really thinking about searching just for even a couple of really great books, I could recommend some.
Just rock it.
Leadership books, leadership podcasts, reading leadership blogs, articles. I mean, there's so many great resources. I mean, we've just developed an online leadership academy, which is a self-paced leadership program, which is actually really high impact and really cost effective for people that want to learn leadership. However, they don't know where to start, and their company might not want to invest in, training and development for them. Other thing is actually going to leadership conferences, events, going to leadership programs, investing in yourself, in a coach, a program, or asking a company to put you on a program like that. I mean, there's so many different avenues. I think it's about you taking charge of taking ownership. Like I always say that, and it's interesting, I'm coaching this phenomenal woman at the moment who approached me about me working with her as her executive coach. And she said, "Oh, look, I'm going to invest in myself." And I said, "Oh, the company won't invest in you." And she said, "No, I've decided to invest in myself." I'm coaching her now. She's gone back to the company going, "Oh, I've invested in an executive coach." Now the company are ringing me saying, "Well, can we meet with you? Because we want to know." I'm thinking, but you're not investing in her. She's investing in herself. But they're still not investing in her, but they're like, we're actually now taking her seriously because, but because she's doing this, like I always say, the more seriously you take your own development, the more seriously others will take you around. Like, does that make sense? Because you're really
absolutely
wanting to grow and learn.
It's almost like she's forced their hand a little bit by the sounds.
Oh, look, I think she's very driven in her career, but also in saying that I think she really wants to be a really great person and great leader, but it's also, I think as well, it's put a bit of a spotlight on her. But she's kind of come at, like, because she's invested in this herself, the company's gone, "Oh, we're actually going to start taking you and your career seriously," because
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is good. She's really cool.
That's really cool. I've all got so much time for people who just go, "Oh, you know what? If you're not going to help me, I'll just go do it myself." That's, I suppose that's the kind of the entrepreneurial way.
Oh, it is. It is. You got to do it.
All right. So on this podcast, we typically talk about the tough times. So I just want to rewind for a second there about I just want to hear a little bit more about your time in Shanghai. I won't get too personal, but you become a single mum and you have $2,000, I think you said. What's that next sort of week look like for you? So things have gone wrong. What happens over the next sort of few days? Do you kind of lie in bed all day just worrying what you're going to do? Are you like, what does that look like?
Wine. No.
Wine, lots of wine, yeah.
No.
Cool. I can get around this story.
Yeah, gosh. That's a really great question. And I think this is where I think resilience and courage comes into play. I don't think we realise how strong we are until things like this happen. I'm going to be really honest with you because I am always really honest. I don't really have a great memory of what happened.
Really?
However,
Okay.
this is an interesting story because I am one of the greatest leaders I ever worked with, and I mentioned her in one of my books. She now lives in Singapore. And a couple of years ago, she reached out to me, and we still keep in contact, but in this particular time she reached out to me because she was going through a really challenging situation and she wanted my advice. We started talking and then we started reminiscing about that time in Shanghai, and she was my general manager at the company I was working with. And I actually have no memory of what happened after that, when all that transpired around all that unexpected and devastating events. And then she said to me, "Do you have no memory of what you were like?" And I said, "I have no memory." And she said, "Sonia, I had the utmost respect and admiration for you during that time." And I said, "Why? What did I do?" Because all I think I remember is like crying, and I felt like I was sitting in the corner going, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do now?" And I think I saw lots of wine bottles. I can't really remember. And she said, "Oh, you were so strong and you were so resolved around, okay, I've gone through this, I've grieved, now I've got to take charge. I've got a choice here. I've got a choice to let this event define me, or I've got a choice to go, you know what? Life has just thrown this to me. I'm going on a different journey. I'm open to possibilities." So I just took it and ran with it. But I think as well, because of my daughter, I think I, in my mind, felt that I had to be really strong for her as well, because I knew I had to create a life for her. So I think survival mode kicked in as well. Yeah.
And what sort of time frame are we looking at between sort of these things happening and then you coming back to Australia? Was it really quick? Months?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So you must have had to carry on with a job there or something, did you? In the
Yeah,
meantime?
I did. Yeah.
Was that? How tough was that going to work every day?
It was great because everyone around me in the Shanghai office were fantastic. Rachel, who was the GM, she was wonderful support. Amazing leader. Everyone was so supportive and so encouraging around me. Gosh, and if I share, I'm trying not to get upset.
Did it stop for a minute?
Oh, no, I'm good. I think the toughest day was when I left Shanghai.
Okay.
Yeah. I had to leave. Okay, I'd built such a great team in Shanghai. I loved the work I was doing, and then they were so supportive of me, but I knew I couldn't live over there as a solo mum. So I remember the day I left, I had to leave, and I just literally said to everyone in the office, I do have this memory, I said to everyone in the office, "Don't make a big deal that I'm going. Just pretend it's any other day." And so I was working as normal, and then my flight was, I think, at midnight that night to come back to Australia. And 5 p.m. hit. I said to everyone, "I'm just saying goodbye now. I don't want to have any emotions in terms of gosh." And this is because I think I was trying to protect myself.
Right.
They literally followed me to the elevator and they wouldn't let me go.
Oh, right.
It was really, and then it was so, gosh, it just broke my heart. And then literally I went and picked up my daughter and we drove to the airport, and as soon as we got on the plane, I just sat and cried for 12 hours. Gosh, the women in Qantas were like, "Are you okay?" I kept really strong for her, and then as soon as my daughter was asleep, I went, "Whoa." So I think it was interesting. I think, and I suppose with the work that I do now, it's amazing how you react to these things. Any sort of thing that happens that's unexpected or shocking, you do go through different stages of emotion and grief. I suppose you know, and knowing that what I do now about neuroscience and the power of vulnerability and things like that, I probably should have been a little bit more open to just feeling the emotions instead of blocking them. I was like, I can do this, and I don't want to feel sad because I'm strong. Well, I should have been allowed to be sad, or I should have been allowed to be really disappointed and upset. I just stayed as strong as I possibly could to move through it all and come to work each day. And at the end of the day, it did show me how incredibly strong and resilient I was, and that I decided to really then go, I got to take charge of my life and make some different choices. And probably looking back, I wish I hadn't have waited until something unexpected like that happened to actually go, what do I want to do with? Does that make sense? Yeah.
It took something big to actually put you on the track that you're on now. Okay, so you talk about being, you know, showing being strong, but also, you know, giving yourself permission to sort of be upset about it. If someone was to go through a similar type of thing that you went through, what would you say to them? Like, what would be your advice? Would you say be strong and put on that front, or would you, like, how would you suggest someone goes about that?
I think, and it's such a cliche thing sometimes, you know, and I look, and people say it to me all the time, oh, you know, things happen for a reason, and maybe the universe had something different in store for you. At the time I went, freaking stuff the universe, or, you know, these things happen for a reason. You know, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. I think what I would say to them is, you know what, it's going to be okay. Like, I think I was listening to a really great video. I was watching a really great video yesterday by Sheryl Sandberg that she got on stage. I think she was at a university, and it was on LinkedIn, and she was posting how her husband had passed away a year and 11 days ago. And, you know, she was very emotional during the speech. But do you know Sheryl Sandberg? She's the COO of Facebook.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, she wrote the book Lean In. Okay. And she's got a really great TED Talk, and I really admire the work she does. And so I was listening to her talk about that, what the grief that she'd gone through. And I suppose and obviously, you know, devastating, and that she had to fly back. They were on holidays when her husband passed away, and she had to fly back to the States and bring her husband's coffin, you know, obviously his body and everything, and tell their children that their dad had passed away, and the grief and everything, and the anger, and you do the grief and the anger, and so I think it's really important that you do feel those emotions, and don't judge the emotions. Just go, you know what, I'm human. I'm allowed to feel this stuff. I'm allowed to be who I am, allowed to, you know, go through all this, and definitely ask for help. I think one of the fundamental things, and even with some of the knocks that I've had since coming back from Shanghai, is that accepting I'm a human, and that I'm not Superwoman, even though some days I go, where's my cape? Like, you know, I'm not Superwoman, and I need to ask for help, which I've done plenty of times. And also, the other thing that's, you always learn from these things. Like, I always find, like, all the knocks I've had, wow, have I learned some stuff about myself. And then I've looked back and gone, yeah, like, I'm actually, as funny or unusual as this might sound, I'm actually quite grateful that it happened, because now I've learnt something, or I'm a different path, or it's taken me in a different direction, which I'm really grateful for. So I think gratitude is really, really important, and that, you know what, that you will get through it. Like, at the end of the day, you will get through it. At the time, you feel like you're in this vortex of emotions, which is totally cool, but you will get through it, and you will learn something potentially really great from it. And Sheryl Sandberg actually said, when she was talking in her speech, like, she went and saw a psychologist, and, you know, and the psychologist, you know, said, you know, let's talk about what happened. And he said, look, what would be something worse that could have happened to you? And she was looking at him going, my husband had a heart attack and he died. What do you mean? What would be something worse than that?
Yeah.
And he looked at her and went, that he was driving a car with your children in it. And she said, actually, yeah, that would be a lot worse. And I'm really grateful I've got my children. So she was trying to, not that she was downplaying what happened, but wow, actually, and, you know, and that I am grateful as well that I moved through it, learnt from it, and I get to live a life that I love now. And it changed my life where I've now created and, you know, written books and created a company, and wow, like I never in a million years thought I could do that, and I'm really grateful for that.
Right.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, there's a whole lot I can go into there, but what was interesting to me is I listened to a couple of your podcast episodes, and you touched on it before about confidence over competence per se. So now you come back from Shanghai, you're in Australia, and you go to this, you start working for this company. They're specialising in leadership. I suppose I want to hear a little bit more about when you enforced this confidence over competence rule, and if it came up around then. I'm assuming that's about the time you started to fake it till you make it, by the sounds.
Fake it till you become it. Yeah. Maybe back then it was more survival mode. I thought, I better say yes because I need to pay the rent for my daughter and I.
Right.
Look, I'm really proud of myself for actually faking that, to be honest, and actually believing in myself that I could do it. I'm really proud of myself because by saying yes to that and faking it, like 50%, not all of it, and believing in myself and having that confidence took me on a trajectory of my life where I am today. And I see so many people, like I work with so many people that go, oh, the imposter syndrome, or I don't want to put my hand up because what happens if I can't do it, or oh, I do tick 7 out of the 10 boxes for that job. Oh, I'm not going to go for it, or I'm not going to ask that person to be my mentor, or I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm this enough or smart. Whatever is going on for you, stop telling yourself porkies and just go out there and do it. You've only got this one life. Like, just do it. You know, if I can do it, you can do it. This is why I think confidence. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, I'm also being practical. Like, you have to be practical around, you know, and I'm not saying I miss confidence 24/7. Can I tell you?
Right.
There have been times where I've sat here and I've gone, and literally when you start a company,
yeah,
and you're running a business, there are definitely times you sit and going, okay, I wonder if I could do this. You do
once a week for me.
We all do, you know, we all do. And then I sit there and I go, what am I telling myself? I'm doing it though. Like, why am I questioning myself, you know? And, you know, and the thing is, if you don't believe in yourself, then people aren't going to believe in you as well. So I think confidence is contagious. So, you know, you can do it. You can do it.
And I've had this, it reminds me, someone described confidence to me in a way, which I don't think you're going to agree with this definition of, but I'm going to talk about it for a second, is confidence is the further you increase your skills and the more you decrease your anxiety around something, that gap is confidence. Do you think that's a fair assessment of what it is? Because I hear what you're saying, but when it comes to, I suppose this relates to personal interactions more so than, you know, if I'm really confident that I can play, you know, violin, I still probably can't play violin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but also I think you have to have some sort of passion around it. Like confidence, I don't really think I'd want to play a violin. I don't even think I have the confidence to do it, but I don't really have the passion to play a violin. I suppose it's like when I decided I wanted to do keynote speaking, and when I started speaking, I actually can see what you're saying, because when I started speaking and I started learning the skills and, you know, getting up on stage and doing it, man, did I stuff up. There was a few things I did that I thought, oh, that didn't go as well as I'd hoped. But I kept doing it. Like, I kept going, okay, I've just got to keep doing it. I have to learn the skills. I have to put myself on stage. And before, like literally before I'd go on stage, oh my gosh, the anxiety and the nerves, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this, and why am I saying this? And I teach this stuff and I'm saying, anyway. But the more I learnt it and the more I got on stage and learnt the skills and got more confidence, my anxiety levels definitely decreased. And now before I go on stage, I do my power poses. Beforehand, I'm so pumped. I'm like, I can't wait. I can't wait. That's
awesome, yeah.
But that's because it's taken years for me to get a lot more confident at it. But initially when I started, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So I don't know if I really had the confidence and competence, but I had that desire or that passion to want to do it because I wanted to get up there and help others around the world rock it and have that leadership attitude. So I thought, okay, that's my commitment. And because I really want to make a difference, I'm going to really commit myself, keep pushing myself forward. I'm sure you and I, if we really focused on the violin playing, we would get more confident at it.
Yeah,
it's just around having that, I really want to give it a go and just keep, does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose what I was kind of referring to is you do, I believe that with what you're describing, you probably did have some of these skills already though, like you had some of them as opposed to, maybe the violin where you had none. So I guess what I'm saying is I think that I understand what you're saying, but you probably need some skills. But you do know that deep down you have those skills and that you need to build on them.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's why you've got to also think about, this is why I talk a lot about focusing on your strengths and talents. Like, I'm not great at, there's plenty of things I'm not great at. I'm okay with not being great at those because I just surround myself with other people that have different strengths to me. So I'm very clear on what I love to do and my strengths and my talents, and I focus on that because that does help a lot with my confidence versus, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. Like, you know how you get taught at school? Oh, you got an A in maths, but you got a D in English. Let's just focus on the English because you got a D in it. But, I don't like English. Doesn't matter. We're going to focus on the English. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does, yeah.
So by focusing on the fact that we are not perfect, which thank goodness, focusing on the things that you actually are good at and what you love doing it. And that helps so much with the self-belief and the confidence.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point because that's, I've done a lot of public speaking myself. And I never would have considered myself a public speaker. Probably still don't really. But I suppose building that ability to be okay with imperfection as well, knowing that you'll get up on stage and talk in front of people and knowing, you know what, it's not going to go perfectly. There's going to be that this is my self-talk afterwards anyways, those 2 or 3 things, wish I had said that here, wish I hadn't said that there, that just being okay, and this is easier said than done, I think, but being okay with it not going perfectly.
Oh, but also I think what is perfection? I mean, I think we can kind of, and we do this a lot, we beat ourselves up, is we might get off on stage and someone might have gone, wow, Jack, that was perfect. And we've gone, oh, no, that was... So everyone's got different perceptions, don't they?
Yeah.
If someone doesn't think it's perfect, does it really matter? As long as you feel that you're out there doing something you love but I think I agree that whole perfectionism can also stop us from doing it. Oh, no, I can't do it because it's not going to be perfect. Well, does it really matter? It's not perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. So when you talking about the tough times, we've talked about the first one. What else comes to mind when you think of tough times in your career?
In my career, wow. I definitely think tough times in my career. Probably made some not so great career choices in my career. I should have been a lot more focused around my career strategy in my career. What else? In terms of starting a business, I think some of the definite challenge have been, the amount of letdowns. I think, people that you've met or you've, put in really awesome proposals with or presentations to, and the clients have gone, oh my gosh, I can't wait to work with you, or I'd love to work with you, and then you never hear back from them again.
Yeah.
That's always cash flow is always a big challenge, like keeping on top of that. And also, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking of so many brilliant ideas. Like my team described me as being someone that they described me as, which they said to me last week and I laughed. They feel like I'm the wind. They're constantly chasing the wind. So, because I'm moving so fast and I've got all these great ideas because I want to make a massive difference. The other thing that's been a massive challenge, in particularly the last 3 years, which we talked about a little bit before, was my daughter's mental health issues. She's now 16 and she got bullied really badly at school, like terribly at school, about 3 years ago. And that's why I'm a huge advocate. That's why I'm a huge advocate for teenage mental health, or mental health in general, but also building up, resilience and leadership confidence and skills for our younger generation. So she got bullied so badly that she ended up leaving school, and that has definitely impacted my ability, I believe, around balancing trying to be a great role model and mother for her, but also be a great role model and leader in the space and in my business. So trying to balance all that has been incredibly heartbreaking and tough.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. I know a little bit about that. I had similar incidents with my sister as she was growing up. Not to the point where she left school, but I think she easily could have. I think it was definitely a viable option for her at some points in particular. So that's I definitely empathise with how difficult it can be to have someone go through that in school, which is a real shame. People go to school to learn or whatever, and they have to put up with all that. Plus, I suppose social media these days makes it it keeps going around the clock, unfortunately. So sorry to hear about that. Obviously, that must have affected your performance a bit in your business at the time as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have lost clients
due
to it, which again breaks my heart. In particular, one very big client about 2 years ago, I just dropped the ball because of something that unfortunately happened with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And and I remember having to fly down to Melbourne to meet with the client. I presented in front of the leadership team and I wasn't at my best.
Right.
And the CEO of this company was furious.
Really?
He was furious. Wow. But he didn't know what was going on in the background. And I remember driving back to the airport and he was yelling at me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was terrible. And a couple of days later, I rang him and told him, obviously said, I want to give you some context. And, I understand it wasn't the outcome that we both wanted. But also I think in terms of even at the start of when I started working with them, they kept changing the scope. So that was something that I needed to manage a lot better. But I wasn't in the right mindset or focal point, on focus because of what was going on. So when I told him what was going on for me in the background, even though he was really sympathetic and he was lovely, he said, look, at the end of the day, he was running a business and I lost him as a client. I did everything I could. I went above and beyond to try and over-deliver, which I did. But he just said, look, unfortunately, because of that particular presentation, because my daughter had ended up in hospital and, I just unfortunately lost that client. So that's life. These things do happen in life. And again, my resilience and my strength came out again to try and overcome what was going on with my daughter, plus trying to balance, trying to run a business. So these things just test us, I think. So,
yeah. Right. And I'll just, is this around the time you wrote your first book? Is this coming up? Yeah. And so you've also got that were you working on that at the time, or you hadn't started that yet?
I think, funnily enough, I had just published the first book.
Oh, wow.
Which
Okay.
actually took me a lot longer to write and publish than the second
Okay.
because of what was going on with my daughter. So I had to put that on hold.
Right.
Because of what was going on for my daughter. And then unfortunately, I just published it and then
Yeah.
this had happened.
Right.
Mm.
Okay. And so writing this book during obviously a tough time for you, what was did you doubt you were going to get it finished at times? Like, what was how were you thinking about the process of actually writing the book?
I suppose with Leadership Attitude, I was even though I was dealing with so much trauma with my daughter at the time, it was a really good avenue for me to sit and clear my head or take myself away from what was going on, say, with her and also what was going on with Leadership HQ. So for me to actually sit and write and share some of the stories and experiences in that book about, and I do talk a lot about vulnerability in that book. I think as well, I reached out to a lot of people to help me. So there were people that, it was like my write the book accountability buddies. Like they were there really supporting me and helping me, and they knew what was going on for me. So they'd reach out and go, look, can we help? And what can we do to help with the book? And is there anything I can do to help with your daughter, Abby? And so asking again for help made a massive difference to say, hey, look, I really want to get this finished. Because for me, I wanted to have the book. I wanted to see the book in bookshelves, like bookstores, and I wanted to see it on Amazon, and I wanted to do that. Like that was just such a dream of mine. Oh my gosh, this is an emotional podcast. And then when I actually launched the book and I had the launch of the book, it was probably one of the most beautiful evenings of my life, because regardless of what I was going through, I had 100 people in the room. My daughter was going through such a challenging time. And then in the midst of it all, she goes up to my mentor who was introducing me in the book in front of 100 people. And she goes up to my mentor and says, Amelia, I would like the microphone, please, because I'd like to say something. And Amelia looked at me and went, okay. And she said, and she looked at Abby and she said, are you sure? And Abby said, I do. I want to say something in front of everyone. And I said to Abby, are you really sure you want to do this? And she said, I'm perfectly sure. And I thought, oh no, okay. And Amelia introduced me and then said, oh, Abby's Sonia's daughter, she'd like to say something, and gave the microphone to her. And Abby gets up and goes, okay, my name's Abby, and I just want to say, I am literally got up there and said the most off the cuff, beautiful speech and said, I am so proud of my mum. I am so proud. And I know how tough it's been for my mum, and, and I know how hard she works, and I know how much she really wanted this book to make a difference to the world and to help people be great leaders. And I'm so proud of her. My mum is a rock star and I love her. And literally everyone in the room was crying. And I'm just standing looking at it, and I could see everyone in front of her, tears coming down their face. And then I got up and was like, I don't even know how to respond to that. And then afterwards, it was such a beautiful evening. And then afterwards, literally, I was just wow, I felt like this out-of-body experience. And then Abby, my daughter, comes up to me and goes, Mum, everyone's at your book table. They're all wanting to buy your book. And I went, what? And so I raced up to the table. And then afterwards, I said to Abby, I need you to do that at more book launches for me, babe. But
it's a great sales tactic by the sounds.
Yeah, but it was just awesome. But just seeing the book come to life, that's the real and that's what I say to people when I work with them and coach with them. Visualize yourself doing it, or being it, or seeing the book, or being in the career, or doing the business, whatever you wanted. Your dream is visualize that you're actually doing it. Yeah.
Cool. And so you enjoyed it enough, obviously, to write a second.
Yes.
Okay. So I've had it described to me that just the writing a book is very sort of painful experience. It can be, take a long time. Nothing ever seems good enough. So you've written one, how was writing the second one different?
Loved it.
Right.
The
you
second
enjoyed
one,
it, okay.
oh man, I was like, mind you, like writing the second one, again, I had people around me that, again, helped me project manage that, and we would brainstorm ideas and things like that. I mean, this book is similar but different in terms of it's a book and workbook in one. And that was something that I really wanted in this book, where people could write down at the end of each chapter about themselves and key learnings. This book was, for me, I loved writing this one because it was everything that I believe in, that I want people to rock it in. Like, I was like, this is what I want people to focus on when they come to rocking it. So for me, writing it, I learned a lot about what was important to me around rocking it to help others rock it. So it was a really great learning experience for myself when I was putting my thoughts and my research and my insights into words to help others. So yeah, and I wrote the book because I'm sick of poor leadership, I'm sick of tall poppy syndrome, and I'm sick of queen bees, and I'm sick of bullies. I want people to step up.
Yep.
And step up with gusto and shine. I want people to just get out there and rock it, whatever they want to do. What they want to do as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a mum, as a dad, as wherever they are. I just want them to have create the best life they can and get out there and rock it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic mission by the sounds. So when you say you're sick of poor leadership, what does that look like?
What does poor leadership
look like? Yeah.
Where you say one thing and you do another.
Yeah. That old chestnut. Yeah.
Yeah. When you bully someone or put someone down, when you have lack of integrity, where you're dishonest, you've got no ethics. I mean, there's so much, really. I am so tired of listening to stories of poor leaders and poor leadership. I just go, really? Like, we're not kind of getting a sense that when you actually, it's your behavior. Like, think about your words and behavior and how they impact each other, impact people. Just be honest. Just be kind. Say thank you. Connect with people in your team. Get to know people. I just want people to help each other, like make a difference to each other. And I mean, I've just seen such poor behaviour, and I just think that we've got to stop this poor leadership. I'm not saying everyone is. There's so much great leadership out there. However, poor leadership does impact people. It impacts companies, impacts communities, impacts people.
Absolutely. And so it'd be interesting then to get your take on what happens to create a poor leader. Like, why are these people, it sounds like in there's this sort of a lack of ownership over your own, behaviour as well, if you're kind of blaming something on everyone else and not communicating things through to the team. Yeah, I'm trying to paraphrase here. Correct me if this isn't summing it up right. But what do you think? I'd be interested in what you think creates a poor leader.
Oh, look, I think it's a lot of different things. I think that, some people I've met and worked with, they just don't know how to be leaders. Like, they've been taught about leadership around, think about, an example could be like one person I used to coach on an engineering site. He learnt leadership from being on the tools when he was 15. Like, for him, he was seeing leadership around, you do what I say, yelling, screaming, construction sites and things like that. So he thought that's the way you led or managed people, right, by yelling and screaming at them. It could be because of what you've seen other leaders do around you. So you've kind of gone, oh, that must be how you lead people. It could be... it could be that the company's created that in terms of a fear culture. I mean, I'm a great believer in the fish smells from the head down. So This is why leadership at the top's really important.
Yep.
It could be that someone, and we get this a lot, someone that's technically great, and then the company's gone, gee, you're really great at that technically. Why don't we now stick you in a leadership role where you're going to be managing a number of technical people? And they go, I don't know how to do that. So this is where learning the skills and getting the confidence, I think, really early on is really important. Or if you are technically great and they're actually looking at you in terms of promoting you, they teach you and coach you before you move into a leadership role. Because, I mean, leadership is about others. And I think as well, a lot of people are not very self-aware. They're just not self-aware. They have no awareness of their words or behaviours and how they impact others. None at all. So,
And in there, would you say under self-awareness, they don't know what they're good at and poor at as well?
yeah, I think so. That they don't know their limitations. They don't know their strengths. They don't know their values, so they don't know their value set. They don't know like their philosophy or their belief systems when it comes to certain things. Like that's why we do a lot in our coaching around exploring that self-awareness, really peeling back the onion around who they are, those layers, and really getting to understand people, like through diagnostics, 360s, a lot of self-awareness tools I think are really powerful.
Self-awareness tools? What are they?
Oh, you could do that through 360s or diagnostics like DISC or LSI or things like that. But also we have a toolkit. So we have like a brilliant toolkit that when we take people through any sort of coaching or program, there's a lot of questions around getting to understand who they are. So understanding how they see leadership and leadership experiences for them, like experiences that they've had around leadership, leaders who have made a difference to them and why, or how they see great leadership, what their values are, what's their philosophy. So does that make sense? Really putting the mirror up in front of them to answer those questions for themselves so they get to know who they are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Might be a bit... we might have avoid that at times, some of us, because it's a bit uncomfortable.
It is. I find it uncomfortable too, but it's so valuable. It's so powerful.
And what about then? Okay, so is there someone that you could point to that perhaps all of us know? You know, you and I and the listeners know that you go, that is an example of brilliant leadership. Like, is there someone in the public eye that you think really embodies what it means to be a fantastic leader, or a group of people, perhaps?
You know what, that's really interesting because I tend to find it's the everyday people in my life that are surrounded, that are around me, that I just think, gosh, they are the most incredible leaders. Who do I think in terms of... I love the work, things that come to spring to mind. I absolutely love the work Brené Brown does.
Right.
Have you heard of Brené Brown? Yeah, I think... But that's because for me, I really identify with her value set and the messaging and what she teaches others. So I love the fact she does talk a lot about vulnerability and power of vulnerability and leadership. So I love her books and what she stands for and that she just has such a good heart. I suppose those are the type of people that I kind of identify with. But everyone's so different. Like there's so many people that I meet that go, oh, I love Elon Musk, you know, they bring that up, or different sports coaches or things like that. Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Barack Obama, you know, everyone's very different.
Right. So it's almost like people who gravitate to the type of person that shares their values really as a leader. So a good leader for you to look at and maybe emulate might be different from who I should look at and emulate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important as well, that you will pick up things from certain people that you identify with, because like another person that I absolutely love is Princess Diana.
Right.
Only because she has such a great heart and, you know, she was doing really great things to change the world. You know, so for me, I identify with that because that's my purpose and my passion.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Very, very, very awesome. We might, I think we are running out of time here, so we might have to wrap this up. It has been fantastic to talk to you today, Sonia. Thanks for sharing all of that. Where's some places the listeners can find you?
That's like a great question. Definitely our website, so leadershiphq.com.au or soniamcdonald.com.au. All the social media channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I've got a podcast on iTunes as well. So
Just Rocket, isn't it?
Just Rocket.
Yep.
So we've got lots of different ways that you can learn and grow as a leader, and we'd love to help everyone rock it. So just reach out to any of those websites or platforms.
Cool. And the books are on Amazon, did you say? Leadership Attitude and Just Rocket?
Yeah, they're on Amazon and via the websites, and I'm sure if you Googled both of them, they're on other platforms as well, like Booktopia as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll chuck all that in the show notes anyway, but thank you so much for coming along and talking to us today.
Oh, it's been such an honour. I really feel so blessed for you to ask me, so thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
So thanks for listening to this episode of the Be The Push podcast. You can find all the show notes at bethepush.com/podcast. I appreciate your company and I hope to talk to you soon.